Hello and welcome to Cinema Wellman. I am your host, David. And as a 70s kid, I am well versed in the disaster movie genre since it was born at the very time in my life that I became obsessed with movies. Once upon a time, it all began with Airport in 1970. The Airport phenomenon launched an entire genre, the big budget all-star disaster film. Big budget all-star disaster movies that have posters featuring actual pictures of the cast. The posters for all of these movies are phenomenal. They have so many squares. You'll see them. It's on the blog. You can look at them closely, and I'll flash them by on the show. But there's panels in every one of them, and some of them have like 8 or 9 of them, or even more. It's hysterical. By today's standards, I don't think nobody does that anymore. Does Wes Anderson do that? Maybe. Do you want poster taglines? We've got poster taglines. One man's madness might send 1,200 people to the bottom of the sea. Only one man can save them. Something hit us. The crew is dead. Help us. Please, please help us. Of 97 aboard, 8 had a motive, 1 had a plot. By some miracle, 62 survived. 91,000 people, 33 exit gates, 1 sniper. Watch out for the man watching the roller coaster. It's 5 miles wide, it's coming at 30,000 miles an hour, and there's no place on earth to hide. The great novel, now an outstanding motion picture. Hell upside down. An event. One tiny spark becomes a night of blazing suspense. Love those. On the heels of The Crowded Sky in 1960 and 0 Hour 1957, the inspiration for Airport set the stage for a decade filled with disasters of all types. An entire subgenre of animal disaster movies also took place during the 70s, giving us such cinematic treasures as Frogs in 1972, Bug in 75, Grizzly in 76, Squirm, Empire of the Ants in 77, Claws, The Swarm in 78, and The Killer Fish in 1979. I have a feeling we're looking at a future episode right there. Before we get into this top 10, I need to make it very clear that there is a definitive Mount Rushmore of 70s disaster movies in my mind. There are 4 70s disaster films that supersede all others, and they are Airport, The Poseidon Adventure, Earthquake, and The Towering Inferno. After those 4, there are dozens to choose from to fill out a top 10 in this category, which is what I did for you today. I will begin with my lower tier 6 before getting into our final 4, Mount Rushmore, whatever you want to call it. In the name of Irwin Allen, let's begin with Juggernaut from 1974, rated PG, 109 minutes, IMDb 6.6, directed by Richard Lester. A blackmailer demands a huge ransom in exchange for information on how to disarm the 7 bombs he placed aboard the transatlantic liner Britannic. Juggernaut features 1 Oscar winner, Anthony Hopkins, and 4 Oscar nominees, Richard Harris, Shirley Knight, Omar Sharif, and Ian Holm. So check the box for all-star cast. And with 7 bombs placed aboard a cruise ship, we certainly have our disaster, so check that box as well. Lots of cut the blue wire suspense in Juggernaut, a film shot mostly aboard a real luxury liner cruising the North Sea. Producers advertised looking for people to play extras. They were told they'd be on a lengthy luxury cruise for free, but the ship was going to purposely seek out bad weather since that was going to be important to the movie's plot. They received 2,500 applications and selected 250 people. The weather was so bad that everyone tried to stay drunk all the time to combat the conditions. The ship's bar was only closed for half hour a day. Would being drunk all day help in that situation? I guess it wouldn't hurt. Next, from 1974, it's Airport, 1975, rated PG, 107 minutes, IMDb 5.8, directed by Jack Smite. A 747 in flight collides with a small plane and is rendered pilotless. Somehow the control tower must get a pilot aboard so the jet can land. Pre-flight all-star cast check. 2 Oscar winners, Charlton Heston and George Kennedy, and 5 Oscar nominees, Karen Black, Linda Blair, Nancy Olson, Martha Scott, and Gloria Swanson. Non-Oscar cast members worth a mention: Helen Reddy, Myrna Loy, Sid Caesar, Jerry Frank Costanza Stiller, Larry F. Troop Storch, and Norman Fell. That's right, Mr. Roper. The tagline for today's episode is "The Stewardess is Flying the Plane," which is from this film and is also the title of a book about movies of the 70s by Ron Hogan. That is a total treat. Karen Black is at her frenzied, wild-eyed best in this movie as the stewardess pressed into duty to land the crippled airliner. In case you didn't know it, the singing nun and the sick little girl on the plane and airplane is taken directly from this film. Helen Reddy is the nun, and Linda, the exorcist Blair, is the sick little girl. Land that plane, Karen! Helen Reddy can't sing forever. Oh, and the in-flight movie on this plane is American Graffiti. Love that. Next, 1975's The Hindenburg, rated PG, 125 minutes, IMDb 6.3, directed by Robert Wise. 3-time Oscar nominee, sound, cinematography, and art direction, set decoration. A chronicle of the Hindenburg disaster in which a Zeppelin burst into flames. This was released on Christmas Day. Who releases a movie about the Hindenburg disaster on Christmas Day? Oh, okay. Pre-flight all-star cast check. 3 Oscar winners, George C. Scott, Anne Bancroft, and Gig Young. And 2 Oscar nominees, Burgess Meredith and Charles Durning. Andrew and I painted Charles Durning's brother's house. How many times can I mention that? Non-Oscar related cast worth a mention: Catherine Soap Hellman, Robert Clary from Hogan's Heroes, and William Atherton, who is probably best known for playing a total asshole in both Die Hard and Ghostbusters, and most likely anything else he was ever in. The real Hindenburg took about 34 seconds to go down in flames, but the cinematic version took over 6 minutes. The Hindenburg is the only film on today's list that is based on a true story, which lessens the opportunity to camp it up a bit like most of the others seem to do. Accidentally or not. Next, we have from 1976, 2-Minute Warning, rated R, 115 minutes, IMDb 6.2, directed by Larry Pierce, Oscar nominee for film editing. A crazed sniper is set to kill spectators at an LA Coliseum football championship game, and the police race against time to eliminate him. Pre-game all-star cast check. 2 Oscar winners, Charlton Heston again, and our friend Martin Balsam. And 3 Oscar nominees, John Cassavetes, Gina Rowlands, and Walter Pidgeon. Non-Oscar related cast worth a mention: Beau Bridges, David Janssen, and Jack Klugman. The NFL refused to allow filmmakers to use the names of any real teams or the NFL brand after being told what this movie was about. Interestingly enough, the NFL did allow the use of their brand and actual team names a few years later for the film Black Sunday, which features terrorism at an NFL game with a bomb-laden Goodyear blimp crashing into the stadium. Go figure. The football scenes in 2-Minute Warning were of a Pac-8 game between USC and Stanford. Director Larry Pierce was very critical of the performances of some of the extras, which I find hysterical. But when you watch this, I see what he was pissed off about. Many of these people are running for their lives in a very unconvincing manner. It's quite comical. Okay, we've had a cruise ship, an airplane, a Zeppelin, a football stadium so far. So let's go to an amusement park. 1977's Rollercoaster, rated PG, 119 minutes, IMDb 6.3, directed by James Goldstone. A nameless young terrorist threatens to sabotage roller coasters at various American amusement parks if he isn't paid a huge ransom. Safety Inspector Harry Calder is reluctantly drawn into a game of cat and mouse with many lives at risk. Pre-visit all-star cast check. 2 Oscar winners, Henry Fonda and Helen Hunt. How old is she? And 2 Oscar nominees, George Segal and Richard Widmark. Non-Oscar related cast of note, Timothy Bottoms, Harry Guardino, and Susan Strasberg. This was Helen Hunt's film debut and also features an uncredited appearance by Steve Guttenberg. Over 20 amusement parks were used in the production in order to create the 3 different parks in this film. This was the 3rd film presented in Sensurround, a low-frequency bass speaker setup, and there's another Sensurround movie on this list, and you could probably guess which one it is. The original version included some very graphic crash sequences with gore and bodies flying everywhere, Final Destination, but it was edited down to avoid an R rating. There's a plaque still standing at the Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California, marking the spot where the young man in this film was killed. Really? I find that odd. Next, maybe that's where the film was shot. This is where the young man was killed. Next is the last of our lower tier 70s disaster films, and this disaster is coming from above. 1979's Meteor, rated PG, 108 minutes, IMDb 5.1, directed by Ronald Neame, who directed one of our Final Fours. Oscar nominee for sound. The U.S. must join forces with the USSR in order to destroy a gigantic asteroid heading straight for Earth. Pre-launch all-star cast check. 4 Oscar winners, Henry Fonda, again, Sir Sean Connery, Carl Malden, and Martin Landau, and 2 Oscar nominees, Natalie Wood and Trevor Howard. Non-Oscar related cast worthy of a mention, Richard Dysart, Joe Campanella, and Brian Keith, who isn't Russian, but spoke fluent Russian, so he's cast as a Russian. Brilliant. Meteor was a disaster in more ways than one. In a recent episode, I mentioned American International Pictures while discussing Truck Turner and the blaxploitation genre. Meteor was one of the final films produced by AIP, and its failure at the box office helped to put it out of business. The avalanches and the mudslides and the floods created for Meteor were huge, extremely expensive undertakings, and that helped to tank this disaster of a film. And now, on to the cream of the crop. The following 4 iconic disaster films of the 70s will be presented in chronological order. I will also cover the 30 Oscar nominations and 6 Oscar wins that these 4 films garnered. There's a lot to cover, so let's begin with the movie that spawned this entire genre. In other words, it's all their fault. 1970, Airport, rated G, 137 minutes, IMDb 6.6, directed by George Seaton and Henry Hathaway. 10-time Oscar nominee, Best Picture. Supporting actress, Maureen Stapleton. Adapted screenplay, cinematography, art direction, set direction, costume design, sound, film editing, music. Supporting actress, Helen Hayes. And Oscar winner for Best Supporting Actress, the First Lady of American Theater, Helen Hayes. A bomber on board an airplane, an airport almost closed by snow, and various personal problems of the people involved. Pre-flight all-star cast check. 5 Oscar winners. Burt Lancaster, Van Heflin, George Kennedy, Maureen Stapleton, and Helen Hayes. Non-Oscar related passengers worth mentioning. Jacqueline Bisset, Gene Seberg, and Dean Martin, who's the pilot. He made bank on this film. He was paid $7 million and received 10% of the gross. I read that there are 16 people in this cast that appeared on the TV show Bewitched at some point or another, and 32 who appeared on Dragnet. I'm not sure who came up with that or why, but I wanted to share. Friend of Cinema Wellman, Edith Head, was the costume designer, and this was one of her 35 Oscar nominations, but not one of her 8 wins. The music is phenomenally suspenseful and was composed by the great Alfred Newman, who won 9 Oscars himself. Even though these films may seem cheesy by today's standards, they certainly were packed with talented people both in front of and behind the camera. Airport, really, the entire Airport series has always been a guilty pleasure for me. I own all of them on DVD, and it's called the Terminal Package. I just watched this again a couple of days ago. It was such a treat to see what flying was like in the 70s. We have, of course, smoking. There's chain smoking. We also have full-blown shrimp cocktail on ice in first class. Helen Hayes straight up, she's a stowaway. She straight up walks onto the plane as if she's walking onto an elevator. Chicago to Rome in Airport was $474. And they had stale nuts. This was rated G, and yet there's a discussion about abortion, even though they don't use the word. And there's tons of talk about divorce, and there's infidelity all over the place. It's G. It's also 1970. Airplane did such a phenomenal job spoofing this that it's really hard not to laugh at this serious film today. Like I mentioned, I watched this a couple days ago, and all I could think about was Airplane. And I was laughing. This is serious, but I was laughing. Our next film features quite a lot of overacting, but we really wouldn't have it any other way. 1972's The Poseidon Adventure. Rated PG, 117 minutes, IMDb 7.1, directed by Ronald Neame. 8-time Oscar nominee. Supporting actress, Shelley Winters. Cinematography, art direction, set direction, costume design, sound, film editing, music, original song. Oscar winner for Best Original Song. There's got to be a morning after. Sorry. Plus, a Special Achievement Oscar for visual effects. A group of passengers must embark on a harrowing struggle for survival after a rogue wave capsizes their cruise ship at sea. Pre-boarding all-star cast check. 5 Oscar winners: Gene Hackman, Ernest Borgnine, Shelley Winters, Jack Albertson, and Red Buttons. I hate Red Buttons. And 1 Oscar nominee, Arthur O'Connell. Non-Oscar related passengers of note: Leslie Nielsen, the captain, Stella Stevens, Pamela Sue Martin, Roddy McDowell, and Carol Lindley. 9 members of this cast went on to star in episodes of The Love Boat, so I guess this disaster didn't scare them away from cruise ships. The music was composed by friend of cinema Wellman John Williams, so you know that's going to be solid throughout. One of the many commonalities between these 4 iconic disaster films is the use of practical effects on a grand scale to pull off some of the most epic visuals really in film history. The Poseidon Adventure and our next film, Earthquake, both won Special Achievement Oscars for visual effects before the creation of that Oscar category. They were 2 of the reasons that category was invented in the first place. That stunt of the guy going into the stained glass ceiling, amazing. The entire set turned upside down, also amazing. My lasting memory will always be of Captain Leslie Nielsen looking through the binoculars at the rogue wave that will capsize them and saying, "Oh my God." These 4 films are definitely responsible on some level, one level or another, for my love of movies. Next is Earthquake from 1974. I watched this last night. Rated PG, 122 minutes, IMDb 6.0, directed by Mark Robeson. 4-time Oscar nominee, cinematography, art decoration, set decoration, film editing, and sound. Oscar winner for Best Sound, plus that Special Achievement Award for visual effects. Various interconnected people, I love that, struggled to survive when an earthquake of unimaginable magnitude hits Los Angeles. Pre-Shake All-Star cast check. 3 Oscar winners: Charlton Heston again, George Kennedy again, and we love Walter Matthau. And 2 Oscar nominees: Geneviève Bujold and Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner. Non-related Oscar cast worthy of a shout-out: Victoria Principal. Check out her hair, and she insists it's not a wig. It's impressive. Marjo Gortner, okay, Lauren Green, and Richard Shaft Roundtree. We've got the GOAT on music again with John Williams scoring, so at least it's got that going for it. Charlton Heston and George Kennedy started filming Airport 75 18 hours after Earthquake wrapped. They were working. Charlton Heston turned down a chance to play Chief Brody in Jaws to star in this. Thank goodness. Ava Gardner did all her own stunts. At the time, this film set the record of the number of stunt performers used with a total of 141. Not sure if that includes Ava Gardner or not. Earthquake, like Rollercoaster, employed Sense-Around, and that really didn't catch on at all, since it was only used in a total of 4 films, 2 of which made this list. There was a debate of whether or not to drop polystyrene debris from theater ceilings during the Sense-Around quake, during screenings of Earthquake, but cooler heads prevailed. One film remains on today's list of disaster films of the 70s and probably had more behind-the-scenes chaos than the other 3 biggies combined. It's 1974's The Towering Inferno. Rated PG, 165 minutes, IMDb 7.0, directed by John Gillerman. 8-time Oscar nominee. Best Picture. Supporting actor, Fred Astaire. Art direction, set decoration, sound, music, cinematography, film editing, original song. 3-time Oscar winner. Cinematography, film editing, and original song. It's got to be Morning After. At the opening party of a colossal San Francisco skyscraper, a massive fire breaks out due to careless building practices by the contractor, threatening to destroy the tower and everyone in it. All right, so going forward, I'm going to use that as my, instead of saying IMDb tells us, because I say that all the time. I'm tired of saying that, so that's my voice. So you know that's my movie trailer guy, and that's my reading of IMDb tells us. So you'll know that. That's a change. We just made that. Can we do that, Chet? Thank you. All-star cast check. 4-time Oscar winners. Paul Newman, Bill Holden, William Holden, Faye Dunaway, and Jennifer Jones. And 3 Oscar nominees. Fred Astaire, Robert Vaughn, and Steve McQueen. Non-Oscar related cast worth mentioning: Susan Blakely, Richard Chamberlain, Robert Wagner, and O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson is in this. Once again scored by John Williams, who composed the music for 3 of our top 4 films on this list. Some quick hits about production and the finished product. Released about a month apart from Earthquake, creating a shake and bake double feature that so many theaters did. William Holden called the picture, quote, lousy, end quote. Steve McQueen complained throughout the film that the fire helmet made him look, quote, like an idiot, end quote. McQueen fought with producer Irwin Allen and insisted that he perform the stunt of jumping out of a helicopter onto the roof of the burning building. McQueen won that fight. McQueen insisted that he and Paul Newman had the exact same number of lines, and there were also arguments over billing on the movie's poster and in the film itself. Paul Newman later said, and this is a quote, "I did this turkey for $1 million and 10% of the gross, but it's the first and last time," end quote. Faye Dunaway was constantly late to set and sometimes didn't show up at all, infuriating cast members. William Holden reportedly threatened her one day, resulting in perfect attendance from that point on. I guess things worked out since The Towering Inferno was the highest grossing film of 1974. It wasn't that much of a disaster at all. Well, that is a wrap from here at Cinema Wellman, as we took a look at a portion of my personal cinematic wheelhouse, disaster films of the 70s. We hope you're with us next time as we serve up a great big helping of revenge. Served cold, of course. Until then, take care.